No, there's no unwritten law that she didn't know about. All the laws are written. And I hear she studied law at some point. I'm not sure, but I hear. So I imagine she knows about these things. We confronted the speaker numerous times, even on the floor of parliament, and said, look, this corruption has now gotten to very astronomical levels in the commission, in your office. And her excuse, her convenient excuse was, you people are being used by homosexuals to fight me and so on. And we said, forget I don't know why you like homosexuals so much and always talk about them and use them as a scapegoat. The issues we are raising are here on paper. You cannot be misusing taxpayer money like this. You know that you're buying generators. They bought generators for her office, for her home and the home, not office. Generator for herself and the deputy speaker, each nearly about 300 million shillings for their private homes. How does that make sense? An electric fence was constructed at her private home in Bukedia. About 600 million shillings. That's a private home. How does that make sense? She awarded her radio station in Bukedia a contract worth 3.1 billion shillings. Apparently to run adverts of parliament and all of these different things. And I said, was there bidding by other media houses so that we get the most qualified, the one with the biggest coverage and all of those different things? There was none. The people who signed on the contract were staff in her office, signing off as managers. And many other ridiculous things, that billions of shillings were being put on accounts of staff of parliament. Chris Obore, 4 I don't know how many billion shillings, and all these others. They would go, withdraw, and then take to her home. There's no way these things can be right. And whenever we talked about these issues, people were saying, you Joel, you hate the speaker and so on. I said, look, there's no reason anyway I must have to like her. But whether I hate her or not, the issues of concern are here. Why are they not being responded to? It reminded me of the time when I was Kosase chairperson. At the time we were investigating Uganda Airlines, among other entities. And we were going after the then CEO, Jennifer Bamuturaki. It was the same talk. Joel doesn't like government, so he doesn't like this government official and so on. He's malicious. But I said, it's only a matter of time. All these things will get unraveled. So here we are today. I don't know if there's a best time to fight corruption and a bad time. Corruption has got to always be confronted head on. But again, as I have said, this regime is not interested in fighting corruption. And while I am happy that the Speaker of Parliament is being called to order, because these are things I have been screaming my voice hoarse to an extent that she began to target me as an individual, trying to bring a law to push me out and many, many different things, yeah? So I am happy that she's being called to order, but I'm not overly excited. Like I've seen some people getting overly excited that now this is a serious fight against corruption. No, please do not be hoodwinked. Because there is a plethora of other corrupt people. Can we see them being called to order? Powerful officials, including the Vice President, Prime Minister, and so on, they all stole Mabati for Karamoja. None of them has been called to order. They've all been engrossed in corruption for a very long time. But they will not be called to order. I think the biggest offense, the other offense aside from being a thief, Anita, among her other offense is she has been developing ambitions to run for president. And that's been clear to all and sundry. So they decided to use her theft to say, okay, now that we have a charge against her, let's deal with her once and for all. But otherwise, it's not really the fight against corruption. Otherwise, this whole government, all government officials would all be in jail. Parliament passes, and something we're always quarreling about, trillions of shillings worth of classified. That classified budget is what is used by Mr. Museveni and his son. They're the ones who control it. It's not audited. They do with it as they please. That's also corruption. Mr. Museveni said, no, these ones I have forgiven them. How do you forgive some and not others? How do you choose? Because it should be court to determine eventually. But people were taken to court by the Inspectorate of Government these MPs that were extorting billions of money from government entities. And then he said, now these ones I forgave. So that shows you that this really is not just a fight against corruption. So people should not get overly excited, because he could have forgiven her like he forgave the others. And besides, this is not the first time that we are raising these issues. When I wrote to the IGG twice, asking her to investigate, that time it was Honorable Betty Kame, asking her to investigate issues of corruption in Parliament and so on. She wrote to me saying, I will investigate and so on. There was no interest. Then Mr. Museveni went to Bukedia for a function and he exonerated her. Said, no, these ones you are, after my daughter because of homosexuals and all of this usual talk. But anyway, eventually, like I have said and others have said, the chickens are coming home to roost. Because me, a thief is a thief. So that whole, this one is a mistake, this one is misguided, this one, that's his analogy to try and cover up for some. But as far as I'm concerned, the thief is a thief. I have said severally, and others have said the same, that Uganda is under family rule. That the Museveni family is the one calling shots, not institutions, and that's a sad thing. That's why somebody who is vice president, number 2, prime minister, speaker, number 3, and so on, they get summoned by General Salim Saleh, who is just a presidential advisor. But because he's a brother to Mr. Museveni, he will summon them and they'll go running and bowing down. Why? Because the family is the one in control. The chief of defense forces, who heads the military, ideally is not the one supposed to be investigating corruption. Where is the inspectorate of government in all of this? They're the one supposed to be leading the charge, because it is the ombudsman. It's the institution that is charged with fighting corruption. But no, it is the head of the military. The military is supposed to be guarding our borders to make sure there is no enemy entrance and all of these different things. But there are institutions which are charged with fighting against corruption. Where are they? They are absent. Why? Because it is the family that is doing all these different things. So anyone that annoys the family, that's why they will say, this one we have forgiven you. Mr. Museveni the other day we were at Chankwan, he said, these ones I have forgiven. This one I will not forgive. So they're the ones that take a decision, as opposed to institutions. That's a precarious state for us to be at as a country. And that's why people should not get overly excited, yeah? It's good that one thief is being called to order, but there's many other thieves. How come for them they are being forgiven? When Mabati iron sheets for Karamoja were stolen, Nandutu was taken to jail, and I'm glad she's in jail. She should be there because she's a thief. But she's not the only thief. The vice president also took Mabati, the speaker, the prime minister, and many others. How come for them they're not in jail? So that's the challenge there is. Now, General Muhoozi, who has hitherto been on rampage, abducting people, torturing them, taking them to his basement, and all of these different things. And people are getting angry with him. Now he's trying to remold himself and metamorphose and say, I'm now the champion against corruption. And I've seen some people getting excited and saying, hey, Muhoozi, oye, and so on. It's a red herring. It's not exactly just the fight against corruption. There is a lot more to it. And so he's trying to make himself appeal to the people of Uganda. In 1971, when General Idi Amin Dada took over power in a coup, people were excited because he was now arresting people and saying, this former government official has been stealing taxpayers' money and so on. He arrested this one, arrested the other, and people were getting excited. But the real fellow and his true colors were about to come through. And eventually they did. No, every office should be accountable. Every office bearer should be accountable. That's it. I can't even say there should be something new about the law or that kind of thing. A thief is a thief. The commission has not been accountable. The speaker has not been accountable. And it is a clarion call I have made several times and numerous other people. But they kept sugarcoating it. Yeah? So whichever office you get to occupy, you've got to be accountable. This has not been the case. When we're asking and saying billions of shillings that are withdrawn by the Chris Obores and others on their personal accounts and then they take to the speaker, what's that money for? Who budgeted for it? Then they were saying the speaker carrying out, corporate social responsibility and so on. What is that? You've got to unpack that. You can't say on one weekend, the speaker spent 5 billion shillings. Speaker's activities in this region. What is that? What do you mean by speaker's activities in Eastern region? On a Saturday and Sunday, 2 days, 6 billion shillings. doesn't make sense at all. Look, I hope that eventually we get to see a robust investigation of the Parliamentary Commission as it has been and the institution of Parliament. There's got to be a reboot. Recruitments. Every so often you see new people and they tell you this one is now a newly hired staff. This one is, and they tell you this one is a relative to this one, is a girlfriend to this one, is a what, and all of these different things. And these are people who are hired. Jobs are not advertised. You don't know how qualified or competent they are. All of these issues have got to be looked into. The commission payroll has gotten bloated unprecedentedly because of too many people that are hired there. Some don't even report to work. And these are things we have said several. People are on the payroll, but you don't know where they sit in Parliament. But they're on the payroll earning money. Then you hear this one is running, is a staff at the Speaker's School or hospital in Bukedia and so on, but they're earning a salary at Parliament. How can these things be right? No. And when you talk about these things, then people say, Joel, you hate the Speaker. Well, I hate corruption. I hate the bad things she's doing, so you deal with them. Don't try and make it like it's personal or like there's a personal fight. No, there isn't.